phones are expensive, and so is the camera experience to get your best images out of them. But today I'm challenging myself, so let's test a phone that is just 100 euros. Okay, it's 105, but that doesn't sound as good, right? So this is it, the Motorola G05, and honestly, looking at the phone itself, it doesn't look like a phone that is 100 euros, especially with the camera ring details, even though it has only one camera, and of course the texture on the back itself. It actually looks like a phone that is a lot more like 130 euros. Anyway, that out of the way, let's discuss the Motorola G05 and see what it is capable of and why you don't always need the latest and greatest. But also why this might not be the answer for you when it comes to an everyday phone. Anyway, let's dive into the video, starting with the basic specifications. Now, naturally, the challenge will be that we are dealing with just one sensor. That being said, it's a 50 megapixel sensor with an f-stop of 1.8. However, it is a smaller 1/2.76 in sensor size, which seems to be the Samsung S5 KJ-N1. Combined with a very basic Helio G81 Extreme. I don't know why the name is Extreme, it's a 12nm chip. It's also limited to Full HD and 30 frames per second when it comes to video recording, same for the front-facing camera. What, however, I will give credit for is that it comes with a 90Hz panel and an IP54 rating. Sure, it isn't amazing, but again, this phone costs just 100 euros. And also, you do have a micro SD slot allowing up to 1 TB of additional memory. Oh, and a headphone jack on top of that. Not even flagships do this. But this phone is a bit older, being released earlier this year. The challenge really lies to the camera itself, and we will test out how it holds up. So let's just do that, and let me show you the way you can shoot matters more than the price you will pay, even though this will be a challenge. Now, with a setup like this, you can see long shadows because of the sunset, but there are different ways you can approach a shot like this. You can try to create leaning lines on the bridge itself, you can also create this look with the clouds and the sun, and you can also use that. Now for that we are going to need to be on a different position, but let me show you by default what I get, and I will say by default it's pretty bright. But if you turn down the brightness you will get a lot more contrast on the shot itself. It will then take a little bit to process that image as well. And like I said, while it is slow, this is a completely acceptable shot. What I do with subjects like this, I look around and find things like this, the older worn metal under the bridge itself. So what we are going to do is play around with styles, which is probably going to be a simple black and white. Now we have two styles, we have classic and vivid. But when it comes to vivid, I feel like it's a bit too sharp, where the classic isn't as much. Now for the shot itself, I try to find a position where I get a really good contrast because of the shadows and the sun itself, to create a really nice contrast on the shot. So here at the bridge, I really like the pattern of it, so you can create a shot as such. Of course, I can crop in a little bit, but I don't really feel like I have a shot here that works with the crop itself. So I'm going back to the ×1. And having this style where it's imperfect reminds me of a really old shot. And I think it works really well when it comes to this Moto G05. Now, with a setup like this, it's a pretty good dynamic range test. Starting with, of course, the 1x, but I also think here the zoom works really well. And I think that the colors are actually quite good as well, especially the greens when you turn down their brightness. So what I do here is capture the depth of the flower itself, use that as a foreground, and then of course combined with the color of it and then the lovely contrast on the building, with the sun hitting it beautifully to really pull focus towards the building itself and draw your eyes more to the subject itself that I'm shooting. Now this is the reason I came here. That's a beautiful church. Of course, again limited to 1080p 30 frames per second. But yeah, this is what I'm here for. And I'm gonna try to get to an angle where I can have that sunset really affecting the building itself on that right side. So what I want to do here is create the contrast of both sides. Really nice contrast, and then have like the line of that center being followed. It's a shame that the fan is here. I also would have taken a little bit of a different angle, but let's see. Let's try to get that really perfect. Like there. Now there is a downside of having just one sensor, especially with the focal length that we have. Not having an ultra wide in these situations, you'll notice it. And of course not having zoom capabilities as well. But this is where I would normally use a ultra wide to really showcase the skill of the church itself. But naturally you cannot. Now the slower speed of it definitely comes to play when you want to take a quick shot of something moving and you're seeing something that is a one-shot opportunity. There it will lack that speed and you shouldn't expect it to capture something like that well. When it comes to flower shots like these, it can be a little bit of a hit or miss. It's proper red and it just doesn't get that right, which is a downside. Naturally, front-facing camera, 1080p, 30 frames per second as well. Nothing really impressive when it comes to the video performance of it. Now, let's be realistic. A phone isn't just a camera, we use it for a lot more. And there you will find that a 12nm chip from 2020 hasn't aged the greatest. The phone can be slow, it can take a while to produce the final result sometimes when it comes to the images. And sometimes it just stutters while trying to take the shots, as you saw. It can also be slow to just go through the menus every now and then. Though a very well optimized game like Asphalt can still be played in a pretty poor quality. However, when it comes to the processor, it's simple, it isn't fast, and I would earlier look at phones like the Nubia Focus 2, though you would need to pay a bit more in return, but it should be a decent bit faster than this phone. Also, depending on the price, you could look at phones that are a little bit cheaper because they are second hand. I know this sounds bad, but when it comes to having a budget where you want to buy the best you can get, sometimes that second hand might perform much better than your new €100 phone. At the end, when it comes to the Motorola G05, I think for the challenge itself, it's really fun. Trying to explore a way to work around the weakness of the phone itself. Trying to find a way to really process the images a little bit different. Trying to use that weakness in your advantage, especially when it comes to black and white. Having a camera that isn't the best really works well for black and white photography. Even though I will say, when it comes to black and white photography, the styles that you get with the Motorola G05 aren't the nicest. They feel a little bit processed and also they just look a little bit off. It's like a mix you want between the two black and white options. It's just not ideal, but in cases it works out well, especially when it comes to the results itself. I think the shots that I can get from it are actually not bad at all, especially for the price that you are paying when it comes to a phone like this. Again, let's not forget, this is a phone that costs 100 euros. Okay, 105, but that isn't much money, especially when it comes to having the camera capabilities and the phone next to it. That being said, it isn't a fast phone, and we cannot ignore that fact. Especially when it comes to browsing through things, it's quite slow sometimes. And especially when it comes to taking shots as well, the processing can be quite slow. So if you want to use this as a photography kind of phone, then I wouldn't necessarily advise it, depending on the budget. I think for the price that you are paying for a phone like this, and if you must have a new phone, then something like this does quite well, but something like the Nubia Focus 2 will do you quite well as well. But I do wish that it was a little bit faster, and the chip inside clearly isn't really fast. But again, it's 100 euros, so you cannot complain too much. But looking at second-hand options probably will be the better option here. But it was fun nonetheless to really try and elevate the photography for a phone like this and get the best out of it. That part I really enjoy, because you look at it differently. You try to analyze what you can do to make the shot better for a phone like this. And it was quite fun. And I do enjoy it when it comes down to it. Anyway, before we leave, I really want to thank my members. Thank you so much for the support you guys are giving me. It really means a lot to me, especially for a channel like mine. So if you want to become a member, you can by clicking join below. I actually made like a special sign. So if you become a member, you start with an aperture that is pretty much closed, and then slowly it opens up more. I thought that was a good idea, especially for my channel. Anyway, so you can become a member by clicking join below, and if I have a comparison online and there are WAV files, of course my members will get access to those. Anyway, before we leave, also don't forget to like, subscribe and everything. And of course, because of that new feature hype, don't forget to hype the video. It really helps out a channel like mine apparently. So let's test it out. Make sure that you hype with all your hype points or whatever it is, and get this video to get hyped. It sounds so weird, doesn't it? Either way, I do hope that you enjoyed this video, and of course let me know what you think about the capabilities of the Motorola G05. And of course, like I said, when it comes to the camera on the phone itself, it isn't the greatest, but skill also really matters. Either way, have a good one, and talk to you guys in the next.